Alrighty, and we're back. I've been absolutely bereft of any sort of creative or interesting ideas. So here we are. Got my sip of anxiety tea, and we're ready to go. So today I thought it'd be cool to talk about some more spectator oriented camera work and just general streaming and presentation of tournaments. I know that was kind of the topic of last video, but I just kind of wanted to extrapolate and build upon, specifically like some of the camera work and stuff that's like built for the streaming audience or the television audience, what have you. So let's just jump right in. I need to stop saying that shit. Yeah, it just comes so naturally. So first, I know I talked briefly about Die Liga, Unmasked League, briefly in the last video. This was founded by Max Hartung and Matthias Sabo of the German Saber team. So kind of mid-pandemic, they came up with this expo tournament that was meant to be, fencing rethought or reworked for the future audience. Mm. I really like this promotional kind of photo shoot they had. Maybe don't crop out Max Hartung's face, your poster boy, but whatever. I think the use of the lighting is good. The green and the red lights, that's typically what you see on most fencing machines. That's a good touch. Why they're in their whites, who knows? Seeing as they're saber fencers, I think it would have been cooler to have their lamaze on, but whatever. I'm just being a nitpicky fuck. So then we have this kind of like athlete breakdown, still keeping in with that green and red theme. Very good stuff. I think, I think it was very good for a first attempt. And so we have one of their bouts right here is the bronze men's saber match. They had four men's saberists and four women's saberists. Let's see. So immediately, just something I wanted to point out. This is a pretty standard camera angle for these types of events, but I do really like that they have the boom mics right here. I mentioned it last time, but it adds a lot to the atmosphere. You can hear all the blade work, the squeaking of the shoes, the yelling, the grunts. Right? It makes it that much more immersive for the audience, in my opinion. A very good touch to have the commentators in the upper right hand corner. It makes them more a part of the experience, and you can kind of like I don't know. I can see two avenues of argument for this, right? It's like the first one being that okay, having the spectator or not the spectators, the commentators on screen makes it a bit more distracting because you're prone to looking at them when they get a little more animated, as opposed to keeping your attention on the fencers. Personally, I like it just because it makes me pay attention more to what they're saying, and if they're actually good commentators and not David King, then maybe they do actually have something worthwhile to add. Um, brief tangent on commentators specifically. I think it's really important that your commentators have a defined role in the sense that one of them is a color caster, right? You hear this talked about more in more mainstream sports like basketball, football, especially in esports as well, like league or whatever. So you have the color caster. He's the loud one. He's like, oh, they just carry four. He's going. He's pressing. Right. That's the color caster. And then you have I forget what they're called, but more of the play-by-play guy who's analyzing the overall strategy. So the color caster is there to create audience engagement and give the audience something to emotionally grab onto. Right. If the commentator's energy is up here, you naturally elevate with him. Right. And then for the more intellectual stuff, the more nitty gritty, you have the play by play, the strategist who talks between touches. And that might be a bit challenging for Saber specifically, just because the exchanges and like the breaks in between action are so brief. But I still think it's a sort of model that we could afford to follow as opposed to just having David King going, oh, lovely riposte, so just my 2 cents. I'll keep watching. Obviously, we don't know what the hell they're saying because it's in German, but I like the light bars on the side as well. I think it gives it's a nice visual flair. It lights up the entire strip green with the reflection. That's a very great touch. The black background is excellent as well. Very easy to see the blade against, but the bars are good because of what I just said, but also because it provides a sort of visual break to follow the blade with as well. It makes it easier to see the blade when you can see it. Okay, it's like doesn't get completely lost against the black. There's still bits where you can see it against the white. So very good stuff.
So, Carla, schön, dass du wieder da
Camera
bist.
work. So I'm not really a huge fan of the stationary camera centered in the middle. Just because when you start getting towards either end of the strip, you end up looking at someone's back, and ideally, I always want to be looking, directly perpendicular, to the or parallel. You know what I mean? I want to be looking at them straight on the entire time, no matter where they are in the strip. And I realize that presents a certain amount of technical issues. It's more stable and you get a better picture quality or video quality if you have a mounted camera that can swivel and pivot. Um, and again, there's two ways you can solve this, right? You can either draw the camera way back and maybe put it at an angle isometrically. That's kind of how it tends to be with most world champs and Grand Prix. And you do get a very solid kind of side by side image of the fencers that way. Not exactly, right? But it's like you're never looking at someone's back with that. The issue with this is that you're sacrificing, in my opinion, you're sacrificing immersion because you are so far back from the action, right? So it's still very impressive to watch. It's still very cool, but it doesn't feel as cinematic. And there's a certain tournament that accomplishes or that solves this issue very well. We'll touch on it a bit later, but yeah, just wanted to bring that up.
Wird der Name Bingo Björn jetzt
I'll
weitergeführt?
watch a
Ja,
few
auf
more
jeden
touches
Fall.
and then
Also
we'll move
Bingo
on.
Björn ist ein Ding hier in der Community.
Beautiful parry
Jetzt,
riposte.
ja,
I understand why David King does. I can't help it, but we need somebody else in there. So yeah, overall the camera work is
auch
closer than most
das war
tournaments.
jetzt kein Bingo.
It's a tad more cinematic, and the commentators are there. The strip presence is really good. Let's see how it looks at the break.
Ich weiß nicht, wird wahrscheinlich
Just lonely
zwei
boys
Netze merken.
contemplate.
Schauen.
What is it? I love it.
So,
Oh yeah, this
jetzt
was on
wird
Twitch. That's why you might see
Bein
stuff like that.
fast zwischen auf die Brust
But yeah, so
gelegt.
I think that's all we really need to see from the
Oh,
Masquerade
ist
Liga.
immer noch
Oh my god,
ganz
that's
weit weg
great.
an das Comeback
Let's
geglaubt,
watch one more
aber
touch.
es ist alles drin. Mattes packt den Kreuzschritt, erklären wir später nochmal.
Wonky. But yeah, so that's about it. And then they have this excellent
Auch mit in der Vorrunde, weil wir
post bout
gesehen haben,
kind of
eine
interview
knappe Entscheidung.
afterwards, and then the
Aber
screen wipe is very
das
nice.
eben jetzt auch
I think they did a great job with all this. Is that Peter
ja,
Wagner? I think
das
so.
ist ja, ganz schön enge Kiste, wie
So yeah,
gesagt.
this is
Ja, wir haben
fantastic.
sehr
I think
souverän
that
eigentlich angefangen, aber dann
most major
das
tournaments should have this,
Comeback
and
von Björn. Wie hast du es so
the
wahrgenommen?
quality of the camera work here
Am Anfang
and
war
just the
es
little like
schon
visual flares, like that
ein
little like streak wipe,
relativ
that's
einfaches
excellent.
Rennen.
Still having the commentators up there doing the analysis. So I think that our knacks, this video is mainly going to be about like how we can improve knack coverage in general, but this is the kind of thing we need, not like, in my opinion, kind of like Instagrammy, like phone interviews and stuff. We need to put more effort into our knack coverage because that is our highest level of competition that we have domestically. And in my opinion, there's really no excuse for the unprofessional coverage that we have of it right now. So, not to be too harsh. I just care about this stuff a lot, and I want it to be good. So there we are. So that's enough of the Demascate Liga. Just quickly recapping the stuff I like about it. The all black background, while not as aesthetically whoa, like as I would like, I think it is a fantastic functional background in the sense that it makes it very easy for the blades to be seen. I like the lights on the strips. The camera work is decent. It's closer, which I like. I'm always a fan of closer camera work. I don't like that it's pivoted and mounted to the center. But the post athlete interview is fantastic as well. So moving right along, let's take a look at just run of the mill World Cup, right? It is a gold medal match. Um, and the camera is askew, right? It's very obviously tilted. Um, oh, I love George Dew. She's my favorite women's saberist right now. So yeah, camera work, kind of garb. Uh, there's motion blur on it. Nothing is that crisp, and I understand that this is a matter of the venue restrictions and limitations. But for a World Cup, a gold match, senior level World Cup, have this shoddy of a presentation, you know, there's no wonder why there's no comment engagement. One comment, 1,000 views, which is really nothing when you compare this to the amount or just to the sheer number of sabers in the world. You know, I think it says a lot when the vast majority of our World Cups and our NACs and stuff pop out at like max 2,000 views, right? As a community, I think it is fair to say that we all enjoy watching high level saber. Um, but I understand why people often kind of skip tournaments and stuff. First of all, they're very samey, aesthetically, and then half the time they just have kind of crap presentation like this, and it's like it's kind of shit to like watch your favorite sport at the highest level it can be played at with this like just kind of like whatever half-ass video quality. So I understand why people don't really tune in, and I think it's a shame because the action and the fencing that's still going on in here is superb, and it's still fun to watch, but it's like you just unfortunately you have to make this concession of like, oh, I'm gonna watch it in fucking 720p. So that was a World Cup. This is you know, to my knowledge, this is the most professional level kind of camera work that we have right now. They use this for the world champs more often than not, and it's the same kind of camera work that they have for the Olympics. Quick side note on just the visual presentation of the Cairo World Champ. I think to date this was the most thematic and kind of flavorful tournament or like high level tournament that we've had. They had him like fence in front of a sphinx. They had him walk out of like kind of like a little pyramid thing. So they put efforts to make sure that the host country, you know, they were allowed to put their own cultural kind of flair on it, and it gave the tournament a lot of what I say uniqueness and like recognizability. So I think they did a fantastic job with that here. This is pretty standard camera work, and these are super cool actions, right? But you lose the drama and the immersion by being pulled so far back away from it, right? Like this is all very nice. And like I said, the advantage to this kind of camera work is that no matter where they are in the strip, it feels like you are directly with them, right? That you're trailing right alongside them. It never feels like you're looking at someone's back or whatever. But like I said, you sacrifice the kind of cinematic feel that I think Saber should have to get the most mileage out of its like bold actions. So yeah, it's good. It is the best professional level saber tournament that we've seen so far. So not much to say here. It's just standard stuff. I wish Nax at the very least were filmed like this, but I understand that it's a matter of limitation. So moving on to the NAC. So this was the January NAC, our highest level domestic event that you can do, featuring former world number one Eli Dershowitz, Olympian, and then up and coming star Antonio Heathcock. So this is a prestigious event, and let's look at the quality of which it is presented. So first of all, right off the bat, we have closer camera work, which I appreciate. What I think is no good is the bar that you have right here at the top. This banner. No one needs to know that this is the January NAC in Louisville, Kentucky, 2023. If you're tuning into this, you already know. Or it can be said by the commentators. This is taking up valuable kind of screen real estate, and it makes the fencers feel cramped in, and it looks like you're not centered. Um, and also it's like this here at the bottom. If you already have their name, their score, and their nationality displayed, there's no need to include this bottom banner down here, right? Look at how much redundant information is taking up the screen right now. January NAC, Louisville, Kentucky. January NAC, 2023, Louisville, Kentucky. Go down to the bottom. January NAC, Louisville, Kentucky. Excuse me. So why clutter the screen and the streaming experience with all this garbage? that is that pick one, you know? It's like just pick one or pick none because it doesn't really matter. We're here to see the fencing. It doesn't matter where they are. That's not important to a spectator standpoint. It would be if anyone bothered to make knacks unique at all, right? But it's like right now they're thematically the same, so we don't need to know all this stuff. So that's my first gripe. And let's watch a few touches. Okay. So this too. So this camera bobbing up and down. Um, I know this might be a little harsh, but to me, reeks of unprofessionalism, right? If this is the highest level event, then we should treat it as such, and we should put just a smidge of effort in towards making it an enjoyable spectator experience for the fencers at home who couldn't make it to this. So yeah, and then the pivot afterwards, so jerky, right? Everything is so jerky. It just feels like I'm watching like a student project as opposed to a professional sporting event. Um, and you know, I don't know. I mean, next time I go to NAC, I'll make sure to keep a closer eye out into like the camera riggings and stuff. But yeesh, it's not looking great. So yeah, the nicest thing I can say about this, or the one pro to this presentation style we're seeing right now, is the fact that they've chosen to get closer in on the action, and I commend that. Oh yeah, yeah. So right here, it's like not only is the camera work extremely jerky, but they pan, and this happens all the time. As of recent, they pan too far past, and the fencers become out of focus, right? And this is because they have it manned, I assume, on some sort of mechanical swivel that doesn't really allow for kind of minute control and adjustments of the camera work. So you end up with like just garb like this, you know? Like they didn't even get his entire body back in there when he went on guard. It's just unprofessional. That's the number one word I would use or adjective I would use to describe NAC coverage.
Unprofessional bullshit. That's why no one watches.
Div one NACs. Incredibly unprofessional. It's functional, but like I said, just to recap: redundant cluttering of the screen with unnecessary info, kind of jerky camera work, and just not having the fencers in focus. And also, it's like the shit is blurry. You know, it's like, come on, dude. Heathcock kind of he is though he is. Honestly, I want to do a video just on the Heathcocks soon because they're a phenomenon. So yeah, 647 views, not even cracking 1,000. That's not even the amount of people who were at the NAC. You know, so I think it's very telling when you see the lack of views and lack of audience engagement and commentating on the bottom. And also, where are the commentators? You know, this is Div One Gold. Where's the commentary? So that's enough of bagging on that. Now, so this is the Riposta Cup. I'm not quite sure. I should look it up in a bit. What exactly this entails? It's not exactly an expo event. Um, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. The Riposta Cup is the best spectator experience in terms of like a high level fencing event that we have had ever. So let's take a look at it. And a large part of it has to do with the camera work. So we start off with this very long one. We zoom in, and this is where it gets very interesting. Pay attention to kind of the flow and how the cinematography feels and how it makes you feel. It feels more like a movie, in my opinion. It feels like it's filmed like a movie. So she misses, ba ba ba. Right? The camera work much smoother. You do have this issue now that I said earlier where you're seeing their backs because even though the cameraman, you can see him a little back here. So I assume that this is this guy and this guy. They both look like they have cameras. So points, I believe that they walk back and forth alongside the fencers, but for the most part, they're stationary and just kind of like trailing after them. Um, yeah, let's go ahead and see. And like even all this stuff, this feels so cinematic to me. Very nice. Yeah, so it's like I'm not like a huge camera guy. Like I don't really know the technicalities of all this, right? But it feels to me like this is filmed at like some sort of different frame rate, maybe with a different ISO. I'm just kind of pulling camera terms out of my ass right now, right? But something about the actual gear that they're using and the way they're filming it is much more aesthetically appealing, and it makes it that much more immersive for the audience. The biggest gripe that I have with the Reposta Cup is this gigantic screen in the middle. Um, Not because it's explicitly bad per se, but when you cut back here, you get this really gnarly flickering effect, and the constant changing of the sponsors for the event is a little distracting. Um, but I can appreciate what they're attempting to do. It's This would be fine if they just had kind of this with like a few visual flares and stuff. Let's just repost a cup thing. But I don't want to look at like commercials and stuff. It's enough that you have all the banners of the sponsors and stuff in the back. Why make it take up this valuable real estate when you should be paying attention to the fencers and not the uni credit bid? This is so good. This is so fucking good. Like, yes, it goes out of focus from time to time, but it feels like a movie. You know, it's like I don't want to sound like a broken record, but you guys get what I'm saying at this point. Um, so the point of this video, right? After seeing that, look at this. Bow, Eli, bow. For the my ideal tournament presentation, I want the Raposta style cinematography, right? And the one thing I would change from here is just have the cameraman be willing to follow as opposed to pivoting and trailing. Um, that might be a bit of a challenge, but you know, we have rig stabilizers and stuff. I just don't see it as a really valid excuse anymore. Would it be harder? Yes, but it's like you have to put an effort to create a good palatable sporting event. So I at that point I think it's just lack of willingness to innovate. And even this is kind of spitballing, but maybe you could even have one cameraman per side of the strip, right? And then that way you can just cut to whoever has the best angle, and that way you don't have to chase as much, right? You're only responsible for this side. I think you could get much smoother camera work. Well, you could get this same level of like cinematic closeness, and you wouldn't be able to like, or you wouldn't have to jerk around and cut as much because you have a homie on the other side who's covering the other side of the strip. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it there. We'll talk a little bit about kind of the ideal expo tournament or whatever in a future video, but just wanted to quickly get something out there because I'm posting in about a month. So yeah, adios. Ooh, purple and green. Ooh, have fun.